A wealthy woman's life is upended when her chauffeur disappears, only to return years later with a revelation that changes everything. And if you cherish your family and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The Metropolitan Museum of Art steps were illuminated by countless camera flashes as New York's fashion elite gathered for the annual Vanguard Fashion Summit. Victoria Sanders stood at the center of it all, her black designer suit a stark contrast to the ornate backdrop. Her collection had just received a standing ovation, but her green eyes remained fixed on some distant point beyond the crowd. "Ms. Sanders, how does it feel to be named Designer of the Decade?" a reporter shouted from the press line. Victoria's response was practiced, professional, but lacking the warmth that had once characterized her public appearances. She moved through the crowd with calculated precision, accepting congratulations while maintaining a careful distance from any genuine connection. In her private office later that evening, Victoria allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Her fingers traced the edge of a photograph hidden in her desk drawer, a reminder of what she'd lost and what she'd gained. The image showed a younger version of herself alongside a tall, well-dressed man with kind eyes. Malik Johnson, the name still caught in her throat. The months following Malik's disappearance played out like a blur in Victoria's memory. She remembered the morning she realized he wasn't coming back, his apartment cleared out, his phone disconnected. The police report sat untouched on her desk for weeks. No leads, no explanations, just silence. Those first months tested every ounce of her strength. Board meetings blended with doctor's appointments as Victoria fought to keep her growing fashion empire afloat while hiding her pregnancy from the public eye. She developed strategies to deflect attention: strategic scarves, loose-fitting designer pieces, and carefully timed business trips. Her assistant, Sarah, became her closest confidant during this period. "The board members are getting suspicious," Sarah warned one morning. "They're questioning your commitment to the expansion plans." Victoria responded by working longer hours, joining video calls from home when morning sickness made it impossible to maintain her composure in the office. The day Victoria confirmed her pregnancy was the day everything changed. The doctor's words echoed in her empty penthouse. "Congratulations, Ms. Sanders. You're expecting a boy." She sat in her parked car for hours afterward, one hand resting on her stomach, the other gripping her steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. That evening, Victoria made 3 decisions that would shape her future. First, she would raise her child alone, protecting him from the scrutiny of New York's relentless media. Second, she would expand her fashion house into a global empire, ensuring her son would want for nothing. Third, she would bury the truth about Malik so deeply that not even the most persistent tabloids would find it. The next morning, Victoria called an emergency board meeting. With unwavering confidence, she presented her 5-year expansion plan. The board members watched in stunned silence as she outlined her vision for turning their modest fashion house into a global luxury brand. None of them dared question the steel in her voice or the determination in her eyes. As her pregnancy progressed, Victoria transformed her weakness into strength. She launched a new collection of flowing, architectural pieces that could adapt to her changing body while setting new trends in the industry. Fashion blogs praised her innovative designs, unaware they were born from necessity rather than pure creativity. In quiet moments, Victoria allowed herself to imagine what Malik would say about her decisions. Would he approve of how she was handling everything? Would he be proud of her strength? Or would he see it as another wall she'd built around herself? These questions remained unanswered as she forged ahead, channeling her pain into productivity. The foundation of her empire was built during those months of solitude. Every contract signed, every design approved, every decision made was a step toward securing her child's future. Victoria Sanders was no longer just building a fashion brand. She was creating a legacy that would protect her son from the uncertainty she'd faced. This period of transformation culminated in a private moment in her home office, where Victoria finally allowed herself to write 2 letters, one to her unborn son, explaining the father he would never know, and one to Malik, which she knew she would never send. These letters became her anchors, reminding her of both what she'd lost and what she was fighting to protect. 8 years later, Victoria's fashion empire, Sanders' luxury group, dominated Fifth Avenue with its gleaming headquarters. Inside her corner office, Victoria reviewed the latest sales reports with growing concern. 3 major department stores had mysteriously backed out of their contracts in the past month alone. "Someone's deliberately targeting our distribution channels," Victoria announced to her executive team. The boardroom fell silent as she displayed the pattern of sabotage on the projection screen. High-end boutiques across Europe had abruptly canceled their spring orders. Manufacturing partners reported mysterious quality concerns that didn't exist. The coordinated nature of these attacks was impossible to ignore. 2 blocks away, in a nondescript office building, Malik Johnson sat behind a desk cluttered with surveillance photos and financial reports. His private investigator's license hung on the wall, alongside newspaper clippings tracking Victoria's rise to success. He'd spent years building his investigation firm, choosing cases that kept him close to Victoria's world without revealing his presence. Through his office window, Malik could see the Sanders luxury group building towering above the street. He watched as Victoria's familiar Blacktown car pulled up to the curb. She stepped out, looking exactly as he remembered, yet completely different. More guarded, more powerful. Their son, Leo, followed behind her, his features a perfect blend of both parents. The latest threat to Victoria's empire came in the form of a new luxury brand, Noir Fashion House, which had emerged seemingly overnight. Their aggressive business tactics and mysterious backing had caught the industry's attention. Malik's investigation had revealed disturbing connections between Noir and several of Victoria's former associates. Victoria's assistant interrupted her afternoon meetings with urgent news. "The prototype designs for the winter collection have been leaked online," she reported, handing Victoria a tablet displaying unauthorized photos of their unreleased designs. Victoria's face remained composed, but her fingers tightened around the device. This breach had come from inside her organization. Malik tracked the leak to a server in Eastern Europe, but the trail grew cold quickly. Too quickly. Whoever was behind this had professional help. He added the information to his growing file on Noir Fashion House, noting the sophisticated nature of their attacks. The anonymous warning arrived on Victoria's private email late that night. "Your empire is built on lies. Soon everyone will know." Attached were documents detailing confidential business negotiations from years ago, information only someone from her inner circle could possess. Victoria's response was swift and decisive. She ordered a complete security overhaul of the company's systems and launched an internal investigation. But with each person she questioned, her circle of trust grew smaller. The betrayal cut deeper because she knew these people had built this company with them. From his surveillance position, Malik observed Victoria's increased security measures. He recognized her methodology, the same careful, methodical approach she'd always taken to challenges. But he also saw what others missed, the toll it was taking on her. The late nights in the office, the tension in her shoulders, the way she constantly checked on Leo. The fashion industry buzzed with rumors about Sanders' luxury group's troubles. Competitors watched like vultures, waiting for signs of weakness. Victoria maintained her public composure, but behind closed doors, she worked tirelessly to identify the source of the attacks. Each new development confirmed Malik's suspicions about the coordinated nature of the sabotage. The timing, the precision, the intimate knowledge of Victoria's business. This wasn't just corporate rivalry. This was personal. Someone wanted more than just to damage her business. They wanted to destroy everything she'd built. As Victoria prepared for an emergency board meeting to address the crisis, Malik made a decision. He'd maintained his distance for 8 years, watching over them from the shadows. But now, with threats closing in from all sides, staying hidden was no longer an option. Victoria needed an ally, even if she didn't know it yet. The question wasn't if he should reveal himself, but how. The truth about his disappearance, the reasons he'd stayed away, none of it would be easy to explain. But as he watched Victoria fight this invisible enemy alone, Malik knew the time for secrets was ending. The only question was whether Victoria would ever forgive him for abandoning her when she needed him most. Malik crafted his approach carefully, creating an alias as Michael Lawrence, a security consultant specializing in corporate espionage. He arranged a meeting with Victoria's head of security, presenting credentials that would withstand any background check. His story was simple. He'd noticed patterns in the attacks against Sanders' luxury group that matched cases he'd worked on previously. Victoria's office felt both familiar and foreign to Malik as he waited for his appointment. The decor reflected her evolution, minimalist, powerful, protecting her privacy even in this personal space. When she entered, Malik forced himself to maintain his composure, though his heart raced. 8 years had only enhanced her presence, added layers of authority to her natural grace. "Mr. Lawrence," Victoria said, extending her hand. "Your analysis of our security breaches was impressive." Her voice carried no recognition, but Malik noticed the slight pause in her handshake, a momentary tension he knew well. Something about him had triggered her intuition, even if she couldn't place why. The quarterly shareholders meeting became a battleground when James Chun, CEO of Noir Fashion House, made his unexpected appearance. He'd acquired enough shares to demand a voice at the table. Victoria watched him take his seat, his expensive suit and practiced smile masking what she recognized as pure malice. "Ms. Sanders," Chun began, his voice carrying through the boardroom, "your recent difficulties raise serious questions about your leadership." He proceeded to outline every setback, every leaked design, every lost contract, weaving them into a narrative of incompetence that made Victoria's blood boil. From his position at the back of the room, Malik observed the exchange. Victoria's response was masterful. She acknowledged the challenges while presenting a clear strategy for addressing them. But Chen's smirk suggested he held cards he hadn't yet played. Malik's instinct screamed that this man was key to everything. After the meeting, Victoria retreated to her office, allowing herself a rare moment of visible frustration. Through the security cameras he now had access to, Malik watched her pace the room. He'd always admired her strength, but now he saw the weight she carried, running an empire while protecting their son, never knowing whom to trust. Chen Ch. A lens had been calculated, designed to shake investor confidence. But Victoria recognized something in his attacks that others missed. A personal edge, a vendetta that went beyond business. She began reviewing old files, searching for any connection to Chun or Noir Fashion House. Malik's investigation revealed troubling patterns. Chen's company had appeared just months after several key employees left Sanders' luxury group. The timing couldn't be coincidental. He compiled the evidence carefully, knowing he needed to gain Victoria's trust before revealing the full scope of what he'd discovered. During a security briefing, Victoria found herself studying Michael Lawrence more closely. Something about his mannerisms, the way he analyzed problems, felt hauntingly familiar. But she dismissed these thoughts, focusing instead on his insights into the attacks against her company. The pressure intensified when Chin launched a publicity campaign questioning the originality of Sanders' designs. Victoria recognized the strategy: death by 1,000 cuts, each accusation small enough to defend against individually, but damaging in aggregate. She needed to respond, but carefully, without revealing how deeply these attacks had rattled her. Malik struggled with his dual role. As Michael Lawrence, he could protect Victoria, but each interaction reminded him of what he'd lost. He watched her interact with their son in brief moments between meetings. Leo had her determination, his curiosity. The urge to reveal himself grew stronger daily. A late-night security breach forced Victoria and Michael to work closely together. As they reviewed footage and tracked digital signatures, their old synchronicity emerged naturally. Victoria found herself completing his sentences, anticipating his questions. The feeling unsettled her enough that she cut the session short, making an excuse about checking on Leo. Chen's next move blindsided them all. At a major industry event, he publicly accused Sanders' luxury group of stealing designs from young and signed designers. The evidence he presented was fabricated but convincing. Victoria maintained her composure, but Malik saw the hurt in her eyes. Her integrity had always been her foundation. As Malik compiled more evidence about Chen's connection to Victoria's past, he realized the web of deceit went deeper than anyone suspected. The truth would shake the fashion industry to its core, but more importantly, it would force him to confront the reasons for his disappearance. The question was, would protecting Victoria now make up for failing her 8 years ago? Victoria found herself driving to Brooklyn late one night, to the small cafe where she and Malik had first met. The place had changed owners twice since then, but the worn brick exterior remained the same. She sat in her car, remembering that rainy evening when her car had broken down and Malik, then a chauffeur for a competing fashion house, had stopped to help. The cafe's interior now housed a vintage bookstore, its shelves illuminated by soft lighting. Victoria wandered between the rows, her fingers trailing along book spines. She stopped at the spot where their table had been, where Malik had first made her laugh despite her soaked designer dress and ruined evening plans. "I knew you'd come here eventually," a familiar voice said behind her. Victoria's body tensed before she turned. There stood Malik, no longer disguised as Michael Lawrence. The security consultant facade had vanished, leaving only the man who had disappeared from her life 8 years ago. "How long?" Victoria's voice remained steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "How long have you been playing this game?" The question encompassed more than just his recent deception. It demanded answers for 8 years of silence, for every missed moment in their son's life. Malik stepped forward, but maintained a respectful distance. "I never stopped watching over you and Leo," he said. "Eve. And when I couldn't be here, I made sure you were protected." His explanation sounded hollow, even to his own ears, despite the truth behind it. "Protected?" Victoria's laugh held no humor. "Do you know what it was like? Building everything while wondering if you were dead? Raising our son alone? Having to invent stories about why his father isn't in any of his birthday photos?" Each question hit Malik like a physical blow. They moved to a small reading nook, away from the curious eyes of the bookstore's few remaining customers. Victoria's professional mask had cracked, revealing the pain she'd carried for years. Malik fought the urge to reach for her hand, knowing he'd lost that right. "Chun isn't just another competitor," Malik explained. "He's connected to what made me leave. There's a network of corruption in the fashion industry that goes deeper than you know. When I discovered it, they made it clear that staying would put you and our unborn child in danger." Victoria absorbed this information, her mind racing through past events, seeing them in a new light. The lost contracts, the leaked designs. "It's all connected to what you found?" she asked, her business instincts cutting through the emotional chaos. "Yes," Malik confirmed. "Chun is just the public face. The organization behind him has been targeting you, because of me, because they think I shared information with you before I left." His hands clenched as he spoke, revealing his frustration. Victoria stood abruptly, needing space to think. Why come back now? Why not stay hidden if the danger is still present? The questions came rapid fire, years of uncertainty demanding immediate answers. "Because they're getting bolder," Malik replied. "The attacks on your company are just the beginning. I came back because I can't protect you from a distance anymore." He pulled out a file containing evidence of the corruption he'd uncovered. After hours of discussion, Victoria felt emotionally drained but clearer. Malik's explanations, while difficult to accept, filled in gaps that had haunted her for years. The choice to work together against Chun wasn't easy, but it was necessary. "I'm not doing this for us," Victoria clarified as they prepared to leave. "I'm doing it to protect my company and my son." The emphasis on "my" wasn't lost on Malik, who nodded in acceptance of her terms. They emerged from the bookstore to find the street empty, the night air cool against their flushed faces. Victoria paused before getting into her car. "Tomorrow, we start working on a plan," she said. "But Malik? No more lies. No more disguises. If we do this, we do it with complete honesty." Malik watched her drive away, knowing he still held one more secret, one that could either save them all or destroy whatever fragile trust they just rebuilt. The weight of it sat heavy in his chest as he disappeared into the Brooklyn night, already planning their next move against Chun and his corrupt network. Working together proved more challenging than either Victoria or Malik had anticipated. Their old rhythms remained, but now carried the weight of unspoken words and lost years. In Victoria's private office, they spread out documents linking Chun to various shell companies and suspicious transactions. These design leaks, Malik pointed to a timeline he'd created. They all trace back to companies connected to Chin's former employer, Kingston Fashion Group. The same company where Malik had worked as a chauffeur, where he'd first discovered the corruption that forced him to disappear. Victoria leaned closer to examine the documents, her perfume bringing back memories Malik struggled to suppress. Kingston went bankrupt 5 years ago, she noted, but these shell companies remained active. Her business acumen had only sharpened over the years. Their investigation sessions often ran late into the night. During one such evening, Victoria caught Malik watching her with an expression that made her heart race. Like it had years ago, the moment passed quickly, but left both of them unsettled. "Mom!" Leo's voice interrupted one of their meetings. He stood in the doorway of Victoria's home office, curious about the stranger who'd been spending so much time with his mother. Victoria felt her chest tighten. She hadn't prepared for this moment. Malik froze, seeing his son up close for the first time in years. Leo had his eyes, his curly hair, but Victoria's determined chin and graceful bearing. The boy's presence made the cost of his absence unbearably real. The breakthrough in their investigation came unexpectedly. While reviewing old Kingston Fashion Group records, Victoria recognized a name, James Chun, listed as head of acquisitions during the same period she'd rejected a merger proposal from Kingston. It wasn't just business, Victoria realized, the pieces falling into place. Chun blamed me for Kingston's collapse. When I refused the merger, their stock plummeted. She remembered the aggressive negotiations, the veiled threats she dismissed. Malik's expression darkened. Chun was more than an executive at Kingston. He was their fixer, the one who handled their dirty work. He pulled out more files, showing evidence of Chin's involvement in designer blackmail, patent theft, and worse. Their discovery energized their partnership, but also heightened the danger. Late one night, as they prepared to leave the office, Victoria noticed Malik's hand brush against hers as he passed her a file. The contact sent electricity through both of them, a reminder of what they'd lost. "We can't ignore this forever," Malik said quietly, referring to more than just their physical proximity. "The way we work together, how we understand each other, it's still there, Victoria." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message. Chin requested a private meeting, claiming he had information about Leo that would interest her. The threat was clear, and it changed everything. Victoria's hands shook as she showed Malik the message. "He knows," she whispered. "Somehow he found out about Leo, about us." The carefully constructed walls protecting her son began to crumble. Malik's protective instincts surged. "We need to move Leo to a safe location," he insisted. Chin's desperate. He's showing his hand, because we're getting close to something big. The tension between them shifted from personal to professional as they focused on protecting their son. Victoria activated her security team, while Malik contacted trusted associates from his investigation firm. In the midst of their planning, Victoria received an email containing photos of Leo at school, at his soccer practice, even in their building's lobby. Each image carried the same message: every empire has a weakness. The threat to Leo forced Victoria and Malik to confront their complicated feelings. As they worked to protect their son, the barriers between them began to crack. Their shared fear and love for Leo created a bond that neither could deny. "I never stopped loving you," Malik admitted during a quiet moment. "Everything I did, leaving, staying away, it was to protect you both." Victoria didn't respond, but her silence held less anger than before. As they prepared to face Chun, both knew their relationship had reached a turning point. The question wasn't just about stopping Chun anymore. It was about whether they could trust each other enough to build something new from the ashes of their past. Victoria's penthouse became their command center, with Leo safely relocated to her sister's home outside the city. Security footage played on multiple screens while documents and photographs covered every surface. They had 72 hours until the annual Fashion Innovation Gala, where Chin planned to make his move. "Chin will try to discredit you publicly at the gala," Malik explained, pointing to the event schedule. "But if we can expose his connection to Kingston's illegal operations for SD, we can destroy his credibility." His hand brushed against Victoria's as they reviewed the documents, causing both to pause momentarily. Their plan was methodical: gather evidence of Chen's corruption, identify his conspirators within Victoria's company, and prepare for a public revelation that would protect both Sanders' luxury group and Leo. But emotions complicated their strategic sessions. "I need to know everything," Victoria demanded late one night, her voice tight with suppressed feeling. "Not just about Chen, but about why you left. I need to understand." She stood by the window, city lights reflecting off her face, making her vulnerability more striking. Malik moved closer, careful to maintain some distance. "I discovered Kingston was blackmailing designers, stealing intellectual property. When I investigated deeper, I found worse: money laundering, connections to organized crime. They caught me accessing their files. You could have told me." Victoria's words carried years of hurt. "We could have faced it together. They showed me photos of you at your doctor's appointments. They knew you were pregnant before I did." Malik's voice cracked. "They made it clear, either I disappeared, or they would destroy everything you'd built. And if that didn't work, they'd hurt you and our child." The weight of his confession hung between them. Victoria turned to face him, seeing the pain in his eyes that matched her own. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from her head of security. "Someone accessed our private servers last night," she reported, switching back to business mode. "They copied files from the upcoming collection and downloaded personal documents. The betrayal had to come from someone with high-level access." Malik cross-referenced the server logs with employee schedules. "The access came from inside your executive floor. Someone in your inner circle is working with Chen." The revelation hit Victoria hard. Someone she trusted was betraying her. As they worked to identify the traitor, Malik and Victoria found themselves drawing closer, their shared purpose breaking down old barriers. During a late-night strategy session, their hands met over a document, and neither pulled away. "I never stopped thinking about you," Malik admitted softly. "Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone with Leo, I was there watching from a distance, hating myself for not being part of it." Victoria withdrew her hand slowly. "Those moments are gone, Malik. We can't get them back." But her voice held more sadness than anger now. "Right now, we need to focus on stopping Chen and finding this traitor." Their investigation narrowed the list of suspects to 3 executives with access to the compromised servers. Each had suspicious financial transactions coinciding with Chen's attacks on the company. "We need to be careful," Malik warned. "If we spook the traitor, they might warn Chen about our plan." They decided to feed different pieces of false information to each suspect, waiting to see which version reached Chen. The trap was set, but Victoria's anxiety grew as the gala approached. What if we're wrong? What if we miss something and Chen manages to hurt Leo? Her fears spilled out during a quiet moment. Malik stepped closer, his presence both comforting and unsettling. "I won't let that happen. Not this time. I've spent 8 years building the resources to protect you both. Trust me on this, if nothing else." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years between them seemed to dissolve. Victoria felt herself leaning slightly toward him, drawn by the familiar comfort of his presence. But the moment was shattered by an urgent alert from their surveillance team. The traitor had made contact with Chen. Their time was running out, and they still didn't have all the pieces in place. As they rushed to adjust their plans, both Victoria and Malik knew that everything, their company, their safety, their tie-in-ship, hung in the balance of the next 24 hours. The surveillance alert revealed more than just contact with Chen. It exposed a pattern of betrayals stretching back months. Victoria stood in her office, staring at the evidence displayed across her monitors. Regular information drops, encrypted communications, and substantial offshore payments painted a picture of long-term sabotage. "These aren't random attacks," Victoria said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Every leaked design, every canceled contract. They knew exactly when to hit us for maximum damage." She pulled up the company calendar, matching the attacks to crucial business moments. Malik studied the payment patterns, his investigators' instincts firing. The amounts are too precise, too calculated. They're not just paying for information, they're following a predetermined plan. He highlighted several transactions that aligned with major company decisions. The breakthrough came while reviewing security footage. Victoria noticed her trusted marketing director, Sarah Chun, no relation to James Chun, repeatedly accessing the design archives late at night. "She's been with me for 10 years, Victoria whispered, the betrayal cutting deep. "She was there when I was pregnant with Leo." Malik's expression darkened as he pulled up Sarah's personnel file. "Victoria, there's something you need to see." He revealed documents showing Sarah's previous employment. She had worked at Kingston Fashion Group during the same period as James Chun. "But that's impossible," Victoria protested. Her background check was clean. "We vetted everyone after the first security breach." The implications started to sink in. Sarah had been planted in her company long before the current crisis began. As they dug deeper, Sarah's role became clearer. She had been Kingston's inside source for years, gathering intelligence, waiting for the right moment to strike. The recent attacks were just the culmination of a decade-long operation. During their investigation, Malik received an anonymous email containing surveillance photos of himself from 8 years ago, the night he discovered Kingston's criminal activities. "They're warning me," he explained to Victoria. "They want me to know they never lost track of me." Victoria's phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, asking for an urgent meeting to discuss the upcoming gala. "She doesn't know we've discovered her connection to Kingston," Victoria said, already forming a plan. "We can use this." But when they checked Sarah's office, they found it empty, her computer wiped clean. On her desk lay a single envelope addressed to Victoria. Inside was a USB drive and a note. "Malik isn't who you think he is. Watch the video." The footage showed Malik meeting with Kingston executives shortly before his disappearance 8 years ago. The conversation suggested a different version of events than what he'd told Victoria, one that implied his disappearance might have been part of a larger scheme. "They're trying to turn us against each other," Malik insisted, but Victoria saw the flash of recognition in his eyes when he watched the video. There was something he wasn't telling her. "What aren't you saying, Malik?" Victoria demanded. "If there's more to this story, I need to know now. Everything we're doing depends on trust." Before Malik could respond, they received an alert. Someone had accessed Leo's school records, trying to trace his current location. The breach carried Sarah's digital signature, but something felt off about it. "It's too obvious," Malik said, studying the data. "Sarah's too smart to leave such clear tracks. Unless..." He trailed off, his face paling as he made a connection. "Unless what?" Victoria pressed, fear creeping into her voice. "Unless the real target isn't your company at all," Malik revealed. "What if everything, the sabotage, the leaks, even Sarah's betrayal, was designed to bring me out of hiding? What if EYV been using you and Leo to get to me?" Victoria stared at him, realization dawning. "What did you really find at Kingston 8 years ago, Malik? What was so important that they'd spend a decade setting this up?" Malik's response was interrupted by another message, this time from James Chun himself. It contained a single photo of Victoria and Malik in her office, taken moments ago, with text that chilled them both. "Time to finish what we started." The game had changed. What seemed like corporate sabotage was revealing itself as something far more sinister, and Malik's past held the key to understanding it all. As Victoria watched him struggle with his next words, she realized that the truth might be more dangerous than any lie. Victoria retreated to her private office, locking the door, a physical barrier between herself and Malik that matched her emotional withdrawal. The surveillance video played on loop on her computer. Malik with Kingston executives, discussing terms, looking far too comfortable for someone who claimed to be their victim. "You need to hear the full story," Malik's voice came through the intercom. He respected her need for space but knew time was running out. Outside the office, he held a thick file, evidence he'd kept hidden for 8 years, hoping he'd never need to reveal it. Victoria pressed the intercom button. "You had multiple opportunities to tell me everything. Instead, you fed me pieces of the truth, just like they did." Her voice carried the weight of fresh betrayal layered over old wounds. "I was an undercover FBI agent," Malik finally admitted. "The chauffeur job at Kingston was my cover. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you, wasn't supposed to create a life outside the investigation. But I did, and it compromised everything." The silence that followed his confession felt endless. Victoria stared at the city lights through her window, remembering every moment they'd shared, now tainted with doubt. Had any of it been real? The Kingston operation wasn't just about fashion or corporate espionage, Malik continued. They were using the company to launder money for an international crime syndicate. When I got too close to exposing them, they didn't just threaten you, they threatened my handlers, my entire operation. Victoria finally opened the door. Her face was composed, but her eyes blazed with anger. So you let me believe you abandoned us. Let me raise our son alone, all to protect your case? Malik placed a file on her desk, spreading out photographs and documents. I left to draw their attention away from you. If they thought I'd run with evidence, they'd focus on hunting me instead of hurting you and Leo. The evidence was compelling. Detailed records of Kingston's criminal enterprises, connections to international trafficking rings, and proof of multiple murders disguised as accidents. But for Victoria, the professional revelations paled against the personal betrayal. Everyone I've trusted has lied to me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah, you probably half my executive board. How am I supposed to know what's real anymore? Victoria, Malik stepped toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. Everything I felt for you is real. Everything I still feel. Don't. Victoria cut him off. We need to focus on protecting Leo and saving my company. Whatever was between us, that's over. The finality in her voice left no room for argument. They worked separately for the next few hours. Victoria reviewing company security protocols while Malik coordinated with his old FBI contacts. The distance between them felt greater than during the 8 years of his absence. A message from Chun arrived near midnight. Surveillance photos of Leo at his aunt's house, taken that day. Their safe house had been compromised. Victoria's hands shook as she called her sister, ordering them to move immediately. I have a secure location, Malik offered. A place not even the FBI knows about. But Victoria hesitated, the trust between them shattered. How can I know this isn't another trap? She asked. How can I be sure you're not still working some angle? Malik pulled out his phone, showing her a video he'd secretly recorded years ago. Leo's 5th birthday party. He'd been there, hidden in the crowd, watching their son blow out his candles. Everything I've done has been to protect him. To protect both of you. Victoria studied the video, seeing her son's happiness, unaware his father was mere feet away. The moment stirred complicated emotions. Anger at Malik's deception, grief for the years lost, fear for their current situation. We move Leo to your safe house, she finally decided. But this doesn't change anything between us. Once this is over, once I know my son is safe and my company secure, you and I. She left the sentence unfinished, the implications clear. Malik accepted her terms with a nod. But as they prepared to move Leo, both felt the weight of unspoken words and the possibility of permanent separation looming over them. The truth had come too late, and the cost of secrets might be more than either of them could bear. The Sanders Luxury Group's annual fashion showcase loomed just hours away, transformed from a celebration of style into a potential battleground. Victoria stood in her office, watching final preparations through the window, while her security team coordinated Leo's movement to Malik's safe house. The FBI has confirmed Chin's connection to 3 unsolved murders at Kingston, Malik reported, entering with fresh intelligence. Former designers who threatened to expose their operation, all ruled accidents. He laid out the files, each death matching the pattern they'd uncovered. Victoria barely glanced at the documents, her attention fixed on her phone, displaying Leo's GPS location. He's terrified, Malik. He doesn't understand why he had to leave in the middle of the night, why he can't talk to his friends. Her voice cracked slightly, maternal instinct warring with necessary secrecy. The gala venue had been swept 3 times for security threats, but Sarah's disappearance left them vulnerable. She knew every protocol, every backup plan Victoria had ever created. She's been feeding them information for years, Victoria said, pulling up records of subtle security changes Sarah had implemented. Each one created a small gap in our defenses. Malik's phone buzzed with an alert from his surveillance team. Chin's people are already positioning themselves around the venue. They're expecting us to try something tonight. He showed Victoria the surveillance photos, identifying several known Kingston associates among the event staff. The evidence they gathered was damning. Years of financial records, witness statements, and documented crimes. But Chun had prepared his own theatrical revelation for the gala. He's planning to expose Leo's existence to the press, Victoria realized, reviewing Chin's recent communications. He'll use my secrecy to destroy my credibility before we can expose him. A message from Chin's private number appeared on Victoria's phone. A photo of Leo's empty bed at his aunt's house, taken just hours after they'd moved him. I always knew where he was, the message read. Just like I always knew where Malik was. Tonight, everything ends. Victoria's hand trembled as she showed Malik the message. He's been playing us from the start. Every move we made, he was one step ahead. The realization hit her hard. They'd underestimated the depth of Chin's preparation. Not everything, Malik countered, pulling up a hidden file on his laptop. There's one piece of evidence he doesn't know about. The night I discovered their operation, I found something else, proof that Chin personally ordered the murders at Kingston. I've kept it separate from everything else, insurance in case this day ever came. Victoria stared at him, a mixture of hope and residual. Anger in her eyes. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Because it's not just evidence against Chun, Malik admitted. It implicates people in federal law enforcement, judges, fashion industry executives, people who could destroy us if they knew we had this information. I couldn't risk you knowing until we had no other choice. Their planning was interrupted by an urgent call from the safe house. Leo had disappeared during a momentary security lapse. The protection team had found a note in his room. Going to find Mom. Don't worry. Victoria's world tilted on its axis. He's heading to the gala, she whispered, horror dawning. He knows that's where I'll be tonight. Malik was already moving, coordinating with his teams. Chin planned this too. He leaked information about the gala to Leo's phone. Made sure he knew you'd be there. His voice carried a deadly calm that Victoria recognized from their past. The federal agent replacing the man she'd known. If anything happens to him, Victoria started, but Malik cut her off. It won't, he promised. Because this time, we're not just reacting to Chin's plans. We're going to use his confidence against him. He outlined a strategy that made Victoria's breath catch. Bold, dangerous, but potentially decisive. As they prepared for the gala, Victoria caught Malik's reflection in her office window. After this is over, she said quietly. After Leo is safe, we need to talk. About everything. Malik nodded, understanding the olive branch she was extending. But before either could say more, their phones buzzed simultaneously. A message from Chun, sent to both of them. All players are in position. Time for the final act. The stage was set for a confrontation 8 years in the making. As Victoria and Malik left her office, both knew that by morning, everything would change. For better or worse, there would be no more secrets, no more hiding, no more running from the past. The Metropolitan Museum's grand ballroom glittered with fashion industry elite, cameras flashing as Victoria made her entrance. Her emerald gown, a Sanders original, concealed a bulletproof vest and a wire connecting her to Malik's security team. Every smile, every graceful nod masked her terror for Leo's safety. Malik positioned himself near the service entrance, coordinating with plainclothes FBI agents dispersed throughout the crowd. Through his earpiece, he monitored his team searching for Leo. Security cameras caught him entering the museum's East Wing, a voice reported. He's trying to reach the ballroom. Chin appeared at Victoria's elbow, champagne in hand, the picture of corporate confidence. Beautiful evening for revelations, isn't it? He murmured, his smile never reaching his eyes. Your son takes after you, determined, resourceful. He made it here quite easily. Victoria's hand tightened around her clutch, which contained a drive with all their evidence. Where is he, James? Her voice remained steady, even as her heart raced. Through her earpiece, she heard Malik directing teams to the East Wing. Safe for now, Chin replied, though his future depends entirely on the next 30 minutes. Your choice, Victoria. Announce your immediate resignation, citing personal failures, or watch your carefully constructed secret spill across tomorrow's headlines, including the truth about his father. Before Victoria could respond, Malik's urgent voice came through her earpiece. We've got movement in the service corridors. Chen's people are herding Leo toward the main hall. They want him to burst in during your speech. Victoria took the stage as planned, adjusting her prepared remarks. The audience fell silent, anticipating her usual gracious Fashion Week address. Instead, she began unraveling 8 years of deception, her own and Chen's. The fashion industry thrives on illusion, she started, her voice carrying across the hushed room. We create fantasies, sell dreams. But sometimes those illusions hide darker truths. She launched into a detailed exposure of Kingston's criminal enterprise, watching Chen's confident smile fade. Malik moved swiftly through the service corridors, following the security feeds, tracking Leo's movement. He caught glimpses of his son, so close after years of distance, being manipulated by Chen's men toward the ballroom's rear entrance. Victoria continued her speech, now revealing evidence of Chen's murders, his corruption, the systematic destruction of designers who threatened to expose him. The audience murmured in shock as documents appeared on the giant screens behind her. Chen moved toward the stage, his hand reaching inside his jacket. But before he could act, the rear doors burst open. Leo appeared, but instead of running to Victoria as Chen's men had planned, he was surrounded by FBI agents. Malik's team had reached him first. "It's over, James," Malik announced, emerging from the shadows as Victoria finished presenting their evidence. "Federal agents are already moving on your associates. Kingston's entire network is being dismantled as we speak." Chun laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the stunned ballroom. "You think this ends with me?" "The corruption goes all the way to..." His words cut off as he lunged toward Leo, a final desperate attempt to maintain leverage. Malik moved faster, years of training taking over. He intercepted Chun, their struggle brief but violent. When it ended, Chun was in handcuffs, and Malik finally stood face to face with his son. Leo looked between Malik and Victoria, years of questions reflecting in his eyes. "Mom," his voice carried across the now silent room. Is Victoria rushed to Leo, enveloping him in a protective embrace. She met Malik's gaze over their son's head, seeing in his eyes the same mix of love, regret, and hope that she felt. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, but in the quiet room, everyone heard. "This is your father, and he never stopped protecting us, even when we didn't know he was there." As federal agents led Chun and his associates away, the ballroom erupted in chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, industry titans rushing to distance themselves from the scandal. But in the center of the storm, Victoria, Malik, and Leo remained in their own quiet bubble. "We have a lot to talk about," Malik said softly, including both Victoria and Leo in his gaze. "A lot of time to make up for." Victoria nodded, her hand finding Malik's as Leo hugged them both. "We have time now," she replied. "No more running, no more hiding." As the night ended, the Sanders fashion empire stood stronger than ever, its foundations no longer built on secrets but on truth. Victoria, Malik, and Leo left the museum together, stepping into a future where their family's strength came not from what they concealed, but from what they had finally revealed. The fashion world would never forget the night when style met justice. But for the Sanders family, it marked something far more important. The moment when love proved stronger than lies, and truth finally set them free.